Everyone, my name is Mike Renick. I'm the senior broker, the team lead for Team Renick Real Estate Services. We're part of that great Keller Williams on the Water family covering the west coast of Florida. I'm broadcasting this morning from our office out in Longboat Key. I'm looking out the windows. We have a beautiful sunny day here today. Temperatures should pop into the lower 90s. There's a few clouds out there, but it's gorgeous, overlooking the golf course here at the Longboat Key Club. What I would like to do on Thursdays is just have different kinds of talks where we share from the heart. And many of these I may be solo. I may opt to bring some guests in, but I used to do this in another fashion up north when I lived up there, and we used to call them fireside chats. Not probably a good name for this since we're located down here in Florida. But the key is I'd like to share things from the heart. Now, there's a lot of questions. Should you sell your house on your own, or should you hire a real estate broker? And what I thought is the way to answer that question the right way for me is to share our process. And then you can make a determination what's best for you. Now, one of the things I'd like to share up front is we are different. The team name has real estate services in it, and we really focus on the word service. So even if you're not a current buyer or seller and you've got questions, or you're thinking of selling on your own and you're not sure about a step, we will help. There's no pressure, no sales kind of approach. I'm not even sure I understand what a sales approach is, but we don't do that. So you don't have to worry. There's no obligation. If we can engage and help in some way, that's what we want to do. So I'm going to summarize this on a blog later today with some bullet points that you'll be able to come back and take a look at. But I just wanted to share from the heart. When we decide to look at a possibility for listing a property or selling a property, obviously, we don't want to list. We want to sell it. We have to understand the market. And when we look at all the factors playing in the market, we can do a much better job. So what we do from a high level perspective is we start looking maybe across the county first. What's the market doing? We're going to dive down into the city level, and then also looking at your particular subdivision or condo association. What's happening there? Is it a seller's market? Is it a buyer's market? The way we ascertain that, we look at what's happening with the number of sales. We look at the trends over the past year, over the past 6 months, over the past 30 days. What's happening with the asking price or the listing price? Are we seeing a rise? Are they falling? Are they staying steady? Most importantly, what kind of closing price? In other words, what did it actually sell for? What's the direction over the past 12 months? What's the direction over the past 6 months and over the past 30 days? And what's the length of time it's taking? And we look at this again at three levels: the county, the city, the subdivision or condo association. We need to understand that so that we can meet the objectives you set out. If you're selling and it's a buyer's market, we have one plan, a plan of action that's much different than if you're selling and it's a seller's market. We have things that we can leverage that way. But the key is when we start is really, truly understanding the market. What's happening in your neighborhood? What's happening citywide? What's happening countywide? And we take the time to go through that. And then we sit down and we review that data with the sellers. So after we have an understanding of the market and what's happening, the next question, of course, gets into what is the desire for the seller? Are you looking to sell it fast? Maybe there's some reasons. There's a job transfer and you need to have everything liquidated here to move somewhere else. Or maybe it's not, or maybe there's new family members coming, there's grandkids or kids on the way, things like that, and you want to be in another area. So we have to take that into account. But we also look at if you have a little bit more time to sell, we would price it a little bit different. So it's leveraging that statistics, understanding what the market's doing so we can produce a plan that's right for you. If you're selling on your own, you want to do the same thing. You need that information so that you can best leverage, because every seller has one major goal in mind, and that's to get as much as possible out of the sale. These are large assets. It makes sense, and that's our job, either selling on our own or selling with a professional broker to help you with that. So that's just the beginning as the market analysis. We're going down and taking a brand new listing today. I'm really excited about it. It's a little bit south of Sarasota. We'll announce it later, but we've already done that for both sellers, and they understand the approach. They understand all of those factors, and they're ready to sign the papers today. So we're excited about that, but that's just the beginning. At this point, we need to sit down and have a discussion on price. Well, how do we figure that out? in addition to all the market data, we do what's called a CMA, or competitive market analysis, looking just in your neighborhood. And we don't necessarily look for trend lines. We look at what's happening now. So we'll go back within a reasonable distance around your property, your home or your condo or your vacant land, and we'll see what's happening. What's sold in the last 6 months and what did it sell for? That's just the first step. We try to put it on an apple basis with your property. You make adjustments for what you have and what you want to sell that the others don't, and you make subtractions for what maybe might be missing, things like that. So we get involved down at what I call a micro level. The first part of this conversation would be more of a macro look. Now we're getting to the nitty gritty, the micro level. So what's happening in your neighborhood? So past sales are an indication of how strong the market is or how weak. Past sales are what will be used by an appraiser for your potential buyer to make sure that the asset is lined up with the price. So that's the first step, is looking at past sales. Now, we need to price it strategically to accomplish your goals. So we look at current for sales, what's happening now. And we want to strategically price that. Do we want to be at the top of the for sales? We want to be at the bottom? We want to be at the middle? There's different reasons for that. Remember, it's going back to achieve the objectives. If we have a while or a fairly length of time to sell your home, we'll price it differently. If it needs to be moved quickly, and of course we would never share that with prospective buyers, it would be priced differently. So it's coming down, understanding the objectives and the goals of the seller. We match that with the market, because you're really not going to overtake the market. The market is what it is, and that's not driven by a seller, and it's not driven by a buyer. It's driven by the combination. So there's 3 different approaches to pricing. We can approach above market, and we calculate what we feel is the range for the market price. In other words, if I was brought out to do an appraisal, as a licensed broker, I'm allowed to do that. If I was to do an appraisal, what would this appraise at? So we share that with a seller. And then there's 3 things you can do with your price. You can go higher than that. We call it the aiming high, above market. And you will wait until the market reaches that level, or we find that buyer that this home is so desirable, that's the one they want to purchase, and they're willing to pay over market. Representing buyers, I've had buyers pay over market, but they knew that. They knew how much they were overpaying, and they knew they wanted that property, and in order to get it, they had to. So it's understanding all of this information so we can price high. The other thing is we can price at the market level. That's going to maximize the combination of 2 factors, the length of time on the market and the amount of money the seller gets. It's a balance between the 2 when you price at market. The other thing, and it works well in certain markets, is you price below and you start a bidding war. A lot of the homes in the past that maybe were short sales or under bank foreclosure, that was a good technique. They would price something way below the market. Investors would come in and start a bidding war. I can remember showing investors a property, sitting in the driveway, writing an offer, $60,000 to $70,000 over asking price, and sometimes still getting our butts kicked because we were outbid. So it works well in certain markets. It's not one I would be comfortable with in all markets. But again, if you're thinking of selling your home on your own, there's 3 different ways to do that: above market, at market, or below market. And if you have questions on that, give me a call. We can talk about that. And we can talk about a lot of other factors, and you'll never once get any pressure from me to list the property. Now, let's go on. There's a lot more to this. So what is a seller? What do I have to disclose? Well, I'm not an attorney, and I can't practice law here in Florida, nor do I have a desire to, but it's really this simple. You have to disclose anything that may materially affect the value of the home. Here's our process at Team Renick. If it's something that you can't see and something that's not obvious, you have to disclose. I don't want to get into a gray area. Well, it doesn't materially affect the home. It needs to be disclosed. It's about transparency. It's about truth and honesty. And there's certain forms you can use, not required in Florida. The disclosure is required. How you do that in writing is really up to you. So again, this is all up front before we even list the property for sale, or you as a for sale by owner, put that sign in the front yard. Then we talk about home staging. Are we selling the home furnished? And I say home, it could be home, a single family home, it could be condo. Of course, that wouldn't ascertain to a vacant land, but the other 2 it would. So is it being sold furnished? We need to then do a detailed inventory list. And what we do is we do a combination of words and photographs. So we photograph every single thing in the house if it's going to stay, or if some things are going to go, we photograph those. And we make a include list, or in other words, it does convey with a sale. And we make a list of excluded items or does not convey. That way we have a photograph and we have the words. And both the sellers will sign it in the beginning, and the buyers, when an offer comes in, will sign it also. That way, there's not a question that that couch is going in the sale, but it's that particular couch. It wasn't a different one. It just takes all the confusion out of it. It comes down to plain old-fashioned hard work when you do this. All right, so we've got all of those wrestled with. We know what we want to price it with because we fully understand the market. We've made our disclosures. We're ready to go. We put the sign in the front yard. And then comes that very infamous word called marketing. So in my mind, it's very simple, the process we go through to get the highest price for our seller. And that's exposing the property to as many qualified buyers as possible. Now, as realtors, we have certain tools available to us. Each individual realtor or real estate broker makes the decision which tools they want to leverage. I firmly believe in a wide exposure to qualified buyers. The more folks that see your home or your condo or your vacant land, the better opportunity we've got for maximizing that price. Now, when you sell on your own, here's one of the things, one of the drawbacks, and let's deviate for just a second. A very high percent, and I've seen numbers well over 90, 94 and 96% recently, buyers in the area are aligned with a real estate agent. When you decide to sell on your own, those agents don't bring their buyers by. So one of the first challenges as a for sale by owner is you have to find a way to overcome that. You do not want to eliminate a high part of the market because you haven't listed with a professional broker. You're going to have to find ways to combat that. And if you want to talk more about that, give me a call. But the key is getting that exposure out there. We market to two kinds of folks. We market to individual buyers, but we also market to our peers, other licensed agents and brokers. We're very happy splitting a commission base because we want the most exposure for our sellers. It's all about doing what's right for the seller. Ethics to me is very simply defined as doing the right thing when nobody is watching. So we work hard every single day to make sure it's out there. So there's a lot of different things we use. Let me share this. The traditional methods, not all of them work today. Print isn't as strong as it used to be. But one of the things that's interesting is Facebook. Facebook isn't known as a real estate website, and it's not. But because there's like 3 billion, and that's not an exaggeration, that's the number I heard yesterday, 3.4 billion or something like that, folks out on Facebook, buyers and sellers are out there. So we leverage that in addition to Realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia, our massive Keller Williams website, and our networking and things like that. So the key is, let me share this in terms of Facebook and knowing how to use it right. I've looked through every Facebook real estate Facebook page owned by a real estate agent in this part of Florida. The second highest that I can find has 4,700 followers. That's a large number, 4,700. We've leveraged this technology to the point that I have 87,000. 4,700 versus 87,000. So in addition to all the traditional channels, we know how to leverage one of the most effective channels out there. And we do that for our sellers. So again, I share this. If you're selling on your own, you want to consider not overlooking that channel. It's so very important. All right, so you've got your marketing plan in place. And again, it's much more than putting a sign in the yard and putting an ad up on Craigslist, or Zillow will show your FSBO, your for sale by owner. There's so much more that's necessary to get the highest price. A lot of folks think when you sell your home, you actually can make more money. And the studies show that you really net less, and that's because of the amount of dollars that your real estate agent will spend. And not all agents are equal. I get that, completely get that. That's why you need to see their plan. But because of the exposure level, generally, we bring more money than necessary to cover our commission and more money for your pocket. So we can talk more about that. All right, so we've got it on the market. We've got a marketing plan available for showings. Here's the tough thing. We have a rule at Team Renick that when a prospective buyer or an another agent wants to show one of our listings, we find a way to make it available. And that's why we have a team. There's a minimum of 2 licensed brokers on this team, and we have many other agents we're working with. So we want to make sure, when I'm working with a buyer, one of the more frustrating things when I try to show a property is I call the listing agent and they say, well, I'm busy today. Can you show it tomorrow? Well, my buyer only gave me today. So when you list it as a for sale by owner, or whether it's under an agent, you have to be there. So if you had plans and someone wants to see it and you're not available to show it, you may have missed that one buyer that was willing to pay top dollar. And that's something you really want to put a plan in place so you're available to show it. We go through all the showings, and now it's offer time. So when an offer comes in, how do you handle it? In Florida, with a real estate agent, there's 2 forms of offers. One that, we'll call one, it's an as-is contract, but it's really not as-is. And there's another one that has inspection contingency percents in there. So we can get more into that offline. But when you sell on your own, when an offer comes in, do you know what you have to do to protect yourself? Because there's things you may have to wrestle with. Mortgage contingency. What does that mean? Inspection contingencies. What does that mean? When an inspection finds items wrong, are you required to fix them? If so, at what level? How do you prove they were done at the right standard? All of those are things that a seller needs to go through and make decisions. You can opt to do it on your own, or you can opt to do it with a partner, a licensed real estate broker. So there's a lot more to get into in terms of that. What if it's a 1031 exchange where you're a buyer just sold a income property and now they need to buy another one to get a tax advantage? And those are all things we need to handle on the sell side. Closing. It's time to get ready for closing, but who's going to pay for the title services? The search to make sure that there's no liens on the property, the title's free and clear. Who pays for that? Well, I've heard many agents say, well, it's always this side or it's the other side. And I can make 2 cases. One could argue the seller should have to pay for it because they need to deliver a clean title at closing. The other case, on the buy side, you would argue, well, the buyer should have to pay for it to make sure what they're buying is free and clear. Here's the truth. All through this area, it's negotiable. The seller is trying to get the highest net price for their property, and the buyer wants to get it for the lowest possible price. So that, along with other fees, are all negotiable. There's no certain rule anymore of who pays for title. When you look back, what if there's assessments coming? Out here in Longboat, we have an undergrounding project going on where all our electricity and internet lines and things like that are being buried, and the project's not finished yet. Who's going to pay for that when a sale occurs before it? What happens to property taxes? Since they're paid at the end of the year, if you sell your home in the first 6 months, are you liable for those taxes? Those are all things you need to work on and wrestle with and figure out and get ready for your prospective buyers. The other thing out there is there's a lot of scams, and I've been approached by many folks with scams. We had a condo for sale, and this buyer appeared out of nowhere. I was the listing agent with an exceptional price, and supposedly he was the most powerful person in China, couldn't be reached on his phone because he was so busy, but he went through all the steps. Now, as a representative of the seller, I had to present that offer, but I also at the same time expressed my concern in terms of it didn't appear to be valid. Well, ultimately it unraveled because there was no money transferred at title time, and there's other things out there. So you want to be really careful. How do you protect yourself? When you get an offer, how do you know that your buyer is qualified? What steps can you go through? Can they really afford that home? What is proof of funds? What's a mortgage pre-approval? Is that different than a full approval on a mortgage? Those are things that as sellers we have to wrestle with. So those are my thoughts today I wanted to share. Like I said, later today, I'll summarize these in a blog. I'll put them back out here on Facebook. But that's the process. And that's just from a high level. There is so much work that goes into making sure the seller gets the highest price. We talked marketing. Marketing isn't a let's do it on the first day and forget it. Marketing is continuous. It's launching campaigns. It's evaluating the campaigns. Which ones are working? Which ones aren't? Did I reach the target buyers that I wanted to? If I missed it, how can I change it so that I can? And then ultimately, you keep evaluating the price. Was it priced right? We're not getting traffic. We're not getting offers. Well, that's the market talking to us. If you expose it to so many people and they're not reacting positively, that's the market sending us a message. As sellers, we can elect to ignore it and continue to not sell our property, or we can listen to the market and we can make changes. So again, from a high level, that's what we had. I wanted to share that with you this morning. If you have questions, reach out to me. I can put my contact information on the screen. We're happy to work with you. We're proud of the fact it's Team Renick Real Estate Services. If you're not a current buyer or seller, or if you're a seller and you want to sell on your own and you just need someone to talk to, or you need some advice, I'm willing to sit down with you either virtually if you're not local, on the telephone, or face-to-face in my office. You're welcome to sit down and I'll answer your questions. I'll help you plot a strategy. People ask me, why do I do that if I'm not going to end up with a listing? Well, it's very simple, because it's doing the right thing. And that's what we're all about here. And I promise you won't feel obligated to do business with us. Of course, it's our hope when you see the process that you would consider us when the time comes to list your property. But if we don't get the job, I completely get it. That meant we failed. That didn't mean that you failed. So again, reach out to me. That's my personal cell up there, so you don't have to go through the company's phone service. It's 941-400-8735, or I can be reached via email at mike@teamrenick.com. I'll be happy to engage. I'll be happy to work with you. It's been my honor and my pleasure to spend these last few minutes with you. Next Thursday, we'll be back with another topic. I hope you would consider joining in, or if your schedule doesn't permit, reviewing these on the recorded end. So later today, the recording will stay on Facebook now, but later today I will summarize my points. I'll create a blog. I'll put it back out on Facebook so you can use this going forward. And if I wasn't clear on a certain point, give me a call. I will help. And that's my promise to you right now. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your Thursday. We're not far from the weekend. I hope this is a great weekend coming up. If you go into my website, we produce a blog what talks about the weekend happenings for families. Feel free to review that. And most importantly, understand that all realtors are not the same. Find someone you're comfortable with. Find someone that believes in truth and honesty, and learn everything that you can. Thanks, everyone. Take care.